Oh, hi there. Most of the time, this channel is about early 1900s amusement parks in Coney Island and other things tangential to that. But of course, the island itself has grown and changed as the century progressed, and today it is home to a vibrant and diverse community, as well as the modern incarnation of the amusement industry. Today's episode will be a bit different than the usual, not only because it's discussing modern day Coney Island, but also because it's in the form of an interview with voice actor Tiana Camacho, who grew up on Coney in the 1990s to the early 2000s and was kind enough to talk to me about that experience. This is a cut down version of that conversation, but Patreon subscribers will have access to the full version over at patreon.com/Ty Bannerman. As always, it is hugely helpful if you hit subscribe, like button, little bell thing, leave a comment.
Meet me tonight in dreamland under the silvery moon. Meet me tonight in dreamland where love's sweet roses bloom. Come with a
Joining me on this episode is Tiana Camacho, a voice actor. Hi. You're a voice actor based in Burbank, California, with tons of video game and animation credits. Tiana is known for playing Lily in Street Fighter 6, Bee in Pokemon Journeys,
Let's finish this! Fine press, let's go!
Ermes Costello in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure,
Hey, I'm only trying to warn you. If you don't walk into that place with at least $100 or $200, things ain't gonna work out too well.
Kimmy in the streaming series Velma, and many, many, many more. Seriously, your resume is incredibly long.
Thank you. I try. Sometimes I succeed when I do that.
And we're not talking about any of that today. Instead, we're talking about Coney Island. So first of all, thank you for taking the time to join me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Really excited about this. So what is your connection to Coney Island?
My family was in Coney Island for like 3 generations,
Really?
since the 50s and 60s into the 2000s.
see.
So my grandparents were there,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother and my uncle were there, and I was raised by my mom's side of the family. So we lived in originally the Gravesend Housing Projects, which were the New York City Housing Authority. It was just PJs, you know. We made the best of it. It was okay,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And we had a decent time. And then eventually we left, and my grandfather bought a house, and the house was still in the same neighborhood. We were about 2 blocks from the parachute jump.
Oh,
So,
wow. Very nice.
yeah.
By the old Steeplechase Park, I believe.
Yeah.
I see. So does your family still live there?
They don't currently, but I kind of have like a weird power fantasy of like buying real estate in Coney Island, because
Oh, man.
that is a very important part of my background.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up there?
It was really interesting because since my family was there for so long, I want to say in terms of like park years, the tail end of Steeplechase to about Astroland and into Luna Park, the new Luna Park we have now. So that whole time period of parks,
Right.
there was never a dull moment. Never. Never. But it was a rough neighborhood because
Yeah.
it's the hood. Coney Island's
Right.
the hood. But what always was my safe space was the library.
The library.
And I would be in the Coney Island branch of the Brooklyn Public Library, and I would read a lot of One Piece and a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! And a lot of Japanese manga. And I used to read picture books to the kids there. And I realized I love telling stories, and I love using my voice to tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, I think I want to be a voice actor. And I feel like if I didn't make that realization because I needed a safe space in an unsafe neighborhood, I would have never been where I am today. So
Right.
Coney Island is everything to me. It is the blood in my veins. It is the sand in my shoes, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And man, man, let me tell you, we had fun.
Yeah, I bet. So tell me about having fun in Coney. What time period is this? This is about the 90s, 2000s?
90s into 2000s, because I was born in 91, showing my age. Like you hit 30, you just forget everything.
Yeah, well, tell me about it.
But
Yeah.
oh, there were sideshows, and there was like a weird timeline with the sideshows that I later found out about when I was older. It was probably the hellhole, but I feel like because I was so young when I was there, I don't quite remember the specifics.
Right.
But there was a mannequin out front, and it was a dude vomiting, and it was like an endless loop of
Oh.
him
Oh
vomiting
my God.
into like a steel barrel. And my mom would be like, come look, it's so cool. And I was like, I don't want to be here. I was like, I don't want to be here. This is nasty.
You
But
weren't
man,
into it, huh?
I was like, really, I was a weird kid from the get-go. Like things just overstimulated me very easily. But the sideshows, it was around, I want to say, by like West 12th Street, because I went to elementary
Right.
school around there. I went to PS 90. So it was around that area. And there was like a carts. There was all these carts
Oh,
with
interesting.
sideshows. Yeah. And each cart had like different things on it. And then it was like you could pay and like look at stuff. And I distinctly remember there were giant killer hornets from Japan, which I guess are real. I guess they're
Yeah.
real.
Didn't they make an appearance during the pandemic? I feel like giant murder hornets were being talked about briefly there.
And then they had giant killer rats. And then I eventually realized that it was just a capybara. And I
Poor
was like,
thing. Yeah.
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 And then there was the one thing that always got to me. There were two things. One was the two-headed baby, because it kept switching locations. Like,
Right.
yeah, it switched locations. At first it was at West 12th, and then it moved somewhere else.
So
But
these were carts, and there were tents somehow attached to them that would have the
something
exhibit
like
in
that,
them?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they would have like big, like the classic sideshow banners, and it looked like they were
Right.
printed on vinyl or something like that
Mm-hmm.
for a good chunk of them, because you had the four corners, and then it would come down.
Right.
And then there was one, they had a headless woman optical illusion thing, which, like, obviously you grow up, you figure out, oh, well, we're all being BS'd. It's the sideshow. It's a good
Right.
time.
Right.
But I was like a baby.
So it made an
that was
impression.
traumatizing. And I remember having nightmares about it, and she was chasing me. But the two-headed baby would catch my attention a lot, because I remember it was a long banner. It was rectangular, and it was long. It was long. And it had a nurse holding a baby with two heads on it.
Sure.
But I remember it being around those other carts. And then at some point, they switched it. They switched it to a different place. And then after that, it mysteriously vanished.
Yeah, you wonder what happened to it. I read a bit about that today. Apparently there was a bit of a sideshow war going on at the time between Dick Zygon, who's kind of calls himself the unofficial mayor of Coney Island, and does the sideshow by the seashore. He's connected with that. And a guy called Bobby Reynolds of the Reynolds Believe It You're Nuts Museum. So apparently they were like right across the street from each other at that time, and were battling over the crowds, and that two-headed baby was making the rounds at the time. Did you ever actually see it?
No, because my mother understood that, I am still a baby. Maybe I don't want to see a fetus in a...
How did these two worlds of kind of lower income housing projects and the remnants of the amusement area, did they fit together well? Was it a comfortable kind of fit, or was there a tension there?
I don't really think there was a tension there. I think, for one, a lot of people in the area did depend on the summer season for employment, especially kids that were in high school and things like that. There were people that worked temp jobs, scooping ice cream, maybe on Surf Avenue. And I know one of my childhood friends who actually lived on the same block at me at some point, Valentina, shout out to Valentina. If she sees this, she's cool. Her mom was actually working on Surf Avenue at an ice cream parlor. So I don't really think there was tension
Hmm.
between the amusement area and the people there because
Right.
that's still a place of employment for us, and
Sure.
we all would go there to decompress at like once or
Hmm.
twice a year. Like it wasn't necessarily something that we would do like all the time, but we
Right.
would go there, and local people would go there all the time to just have fun and decompress and blow off steam. There was actually a place that not many people know about, and I
Hmm.
did actually mention this place briefly in the Coney Island oral history project,
Hmm.
and it was actually a nerd hangout,
Oh,
and
really?
it was called, yes, and it was called Animation Odyssey, and
Oh.
Animation Odyssey was a place where people would do fighting game tournaments, Magic the Gathering tournaments,
Hmm.
Beyblade tournaments, Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, everything. If there was a game, they would make a tournament out of it.
It's my
Basically,
kind
they
of
even had
people.
Guitar Hero tournaments after a while too. It was crazy.
Sure.
So, a lot of us are kids from the area
Hmm.
or really close by on the train, and we would go there and we would put $5 in a pot, and then we would
Hmm.
exchange, like, if we won the tournament, we got store credit. Fighting game community, the
Hmm.
FGC in New York, that was a hotbed of some of the local tournaments, and people that would go there would then go to fighting game tournaments in like Chinatown Fair and places like that.
Okay, cool.
So the fighting game community was actually had a hotbed of activity in Coney Island because of
No
that
kidding.
store.
So what were some of the not so great parts about growing up there, though?
I would say, well, there was definitely a lot of crime.
Hmm.
Um, my mother was the victim of theft one time.
Oh,
Drugs were kind of a problem.
sure.
The crack epidemic was really bad.
Hmm.
Um, so drugs were an issue, and oh man, I remember I was a kid and I was just sitting and looking out the window in my grandparents' room, and there was a line of sex workers
Oh, wow.
going down the street whistling to get attention.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
pretty
they would just
intense.
whistle and they would just be down there, and it would just we just accepted that was the place.
Right.
So it's a lot of drugs, a lot of petty theft,
Hmm.
uh sex workers doing their thing. Um and then yeah, it could be violent depending on where you go, but for the most part, like if you just mind your business
Sure.
and you're a decent person, people would just leave you alone. It wasn't
Hmm.
one of those things where you had to constantly be looking for people trying to mug you. In my
Right.
parents' time in the 80s, it was really bad.
Yeah.
But
Right.
as I was growing up, most of that kind of resolved itself.
Hmm. Okay.
But the 80s in Coney Island was terrible. It was
Right.
very violent and constant drugs. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could see like a major change at Coney, like literally anything, what would you want to see?
It's hard to say. I feel like we've lost so much of our history because,
Hmm.
old buildings get like they tore down the building where the Marx Brothers made their debut. Like
That's crazy.
nothing sacred,
Right.
nothing. I would like to see, I would like to see perhaps more for the people that have made Coney Island their home and have lived there.
Right.
I would like people to just acknowledge that there are people that live there and that it's not just an amusement area.
Right. Because
That is my thing. I would love there to be initiatives to promote literacy and help people.
hmm.
That's what saved me and got me out of there when I was a kid. Was
Right.
hyper literacy, actually. I would like to see better things for the people that have made it their home.
In
I
terms of
would
like
like
social
to,
supports,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
social
Yeah.
supports and, just addressing a lot of the issues with the poverty there.
Hmm. Right.
Because if you do that, you solve like 9 out of 10 of the other issues it has.
Hmm.
Um, I would love to potentially see maybe not a revitalization of the amusement park area, but a section of it devoted to historical rides,
Oh yeah,
rebuilt to code so
that would
that
be so
you
cool.
weren't. Yeah, because I would love for there to be like maybe like an interactive museum or something like that where
Right.
you experience the rides, you know?
Is there a particular one you have in mind?
That's hard. That's really hard.
Sure.
Man, I would say the parachute jump, but it kind of scares the crap out of me.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Maybe shoot the chutes just
Oh,
on a
sure.
historical level. Just on
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
historical level. Because I feel like they did what they could with Steeplechase when they made the new coaster that's there in the vein of the original Steeplechase. You
Yeah.
can't make a ride like that again. There was no restraints on
No.
like you can't do that again. You
I'm
can't
afraid not.
do it. I would love to maybe just have treat Coney Island more like it's a museum in certain parts instead of
Right.
just thinking we need to put a bunch of fucking thrill rides here. It doesn't need to be that
Yeah.
way.
Right. So
Just
kind of,
there's so much history. And
okay.
thank you so much for showing so much curiosity and interest in where I grew up. It actually really tugs at my heartstrings a little bit to see someone so invested.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you
All
for having me.
all right. You have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, little bell, leave a comment, and check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ty Bannerman, to help support the channel. And thank you for meeting me in Dreamland.